Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, back again with another podcast. And this is another special podcast. And we are bringing up a whole lot of guests, people who are working in Apple to Microsoft. Also, we are trying to bring some founders here who have built some great products, some great engineering products, which are not only engineered from the best of the resources, but also helping other engineers as well. And we have one amazing guest with us for today's, and I'm really excited to catch with him and all these fantastic stuff that we are going to talk today. So, hey Hari, welcome on board.
Hey Hitesh, happy to be here.
First of all, from all the engineering folks up here, I would like to say and present my thanks on behalf of everyone for building such a fantastic and great product.
Sure. In fact, I always thank the users for using the platform more than building. They have, given us the right roadmap many times. Almost told us saying you should absolutely build this kind of a thing, and we just followed their advice, and we are here.
HackerRank needs no introduction at all. Of course, we would not avoid that there are competition again in the market, but HackerRank has this small edge towards, like, there is something about HackerRank where I feel like I'm at home or something like that. So how did HackerRank all got started? Where did this idea came from, and how did you build it in the initial version 1 of HackerRank?
It's both me and my other co-founder Vivek. It's a funny story. When we were in college, companies used to visit for placements, and this is usually engineers who would come for placements, and they have their actual day job, which is they have to write code and build software. But these engineers from different companies, they would come for campus hiring. They would visit the campus and try to finish the interview and the whole process as soon as possible so that they can go back and do their actual work. So my interview, when I was giving an interview for one of the companies, so the company came into the college. They did not an online test, but there was no HackerRank at that point. So it was a pen and paper test. So I was supposed to write code in there, like
write code, pen and paper.
Pen and paper. Obviously, the code would have never compiled, but I had to write, and this is after college hours, so the college is till 3 p.m. I remember giving the test somewhere between around 4 to 6 or 7, and then they took all the papers, and I was told that there is an interview at like 12:30 midnight. I was totally not prepared, and I flunked that interview because I was lying down in my hostel room, talking with my friends, and it's like, put on your, formals and go for attend the interview
at midnight.
And the reason why it was at midnight is the company wanted to finish the interview on the same day, and they took so many hours to evaluate all the papers. It takes time. And their software developers don't like evaluating papers.
Especially when it doesn't run on paper.
It doesn't run. And on the other end, the other co-founder, Vivek, he was part of the placement and training for our college. And he was seeing all these processes and saying, this is not how it should be done. So when he joined Amazon, while he interviewed people there, he also saw like folks who shouldn't have been come till the interview round, who couldn't code, being there in the interview round. But because of Amazon processes, he had to spend an entire full 1 hour with them. You can't wrap up an interview within 15 minutes, even if you find out that the candidate can't even write code. And he thought like there should have been a process again here saying, they take a test and I could look at their code and so on. So that, all of these experiences, and we already ran a programming club within the college where we used to conduct all these programming contests. So we almost took the same platform out there, made it for companies and started selling it for companies. So we started pitching it to startups early on where they didn't have any time to hire, but they wanted to hire developers as soon as possible. So that's how this whole thing started. It's us going through this problem on our own and realizing there should be a better solution.
Usually what I have personally found is, so I also build a startup around EdTech, which is more about providing schools to a lot of students and teachers who want to teach and stuff. So what I have personally noticed that there are two types of startups around. First, who have actually faced the problem and want to provide a solution, and other people who just want to do a startup. And usually the success rate of the startup who will get a success is higher when you actually face a problem in reality. Not just you're coming up with a problem that, oh, this is a problem I want to solve and this is my idea to pitch that. So I always recommend to everybody that don't try to find a problem. You are already having thousands of problems around you. Just pick one of them and try to present a solution. And it should not be like, oh, I'll find it and I'll do a start. Don't do the startup just for the sake of doing a startup.
Yeah. Starting a startup is not the end goal. It's just starting, right?
It's just a starting. It's just a bigger vision of solving a problem that what I have faced, somebody else should not face that. That is usually the mission, or should be a mission for the startup itself.
Totally agree there.
So coming up onto a nitty-gritty and details of it. So what was the version 1 of HackerRank? How it was built? What was the tech stack behind it? And what was the problem that you were facing in building that?
I think the version 1, again, I would say Vivek was the product person and I'm the technical person. So we realized that, and my co-founder Vivek, he is a Java developer, I'm a PHP developer. So the constraint was like, should we do it in Java or PHP? And then the tiebreaker was like, who's going to write more code? It's him or me. And it came to a point like, no, Hari has to write the code. So I picked up PHP. It's more than the frameworks in the early stage. I think what you are comfortable with should be the deciding factor. So there were better frameworks than PHP even at that time. It's just that I'm going to get used to those and I'm already an expert in one. So can I use that to my leverage? So we built all of that in PHP, and for a good amount of time, it scaled well. And when we hired developers who are much smarter than me, and they could manage things on their own, they came to me and said, Hari, we need to migrate everything from PHP to Ruby on Rails. And these are the reasons. This is how we are going to do it. What do you think? I was like, yeah, now the same question. Who's going to write more code? You folks or me? Day one, and then we moved it to Ruby on Rails. So that's how our backend stack moved. On the front end side, again, when I was writing code, it was pretty much on jQuery. There was no frameworks as such. And then we realized that the code is becoming more spaghetti, and we needed a MVC to manage that. And having an MVC on the back end made us search for something on the front end. It was between Angular and Backbone. Angular felt very bulky and a lot different than what we are used to. We started with Backbone. And then again, I think few years, 5-6 years ago, the front-end team came up and said, this is not done. React is the standard. Why are we still writing Backbone? And this is how we are going to migrate. And we migrated almost like workflow by workflow to React. So today we are, now we know there are many places where we use the right technology stack for the right problem. And the default is Ruby on Rails. If you can say this can be solved in any programming language, then it's Ruby on Rails and React. There are places where we use Golang specifically. There are places where we use Node.js, especially. So when you write code, the auto completions which uses WebSockets and so on, completely use Node.js infrastructure behind that. That's been our tech stack journey.
And what's the execution like? Also, when we write some of our code, it needs to be executed in some containerized environment. Yeah. So how that is going on?
So again, this is where probably things we built in college helped. So like I said, we built the programming club in college. And the very first version of HackerRank just used my college project into building that. And that was written in C++ in the early days. It scaled well for quite a while, and we made it very modular and so on. But again, it was tricky to write and manage C++ code. So now we moved all of that to Golang. And in fact, all of this Kubernetes and Docker, these being written in Golang makes it easier for us to handle some of the Docker internals as well, which is something we need in our containerization stuff. So all the high scale stuff usually happens with Golang there.
Awesome to know that somebody is using Golang so closely. I built up a series on YouTube Golang. I probably was ahead of my time to roll out that series. Nobody watched that at that point of time, but now it's starting to pick up. A lot of people are watching that. But again, the way how you solve this problem, because at that time when you were building the HackerRank, there were not many solutions, and especially not code execution engines were there who can take your code, execute in a sandbox environment, then get you output and all of that. It's first of all not easy to think around that how you're going to execute, because there is so much of security issues around that. So what do you take care, and how do you take care of the security, because you are very sensitive environment. I'm pretty sure there is a huge amount of junky code who tries to, like, malicious intent comes around in the code itself. How do you handle that part?
So again, there are two ways to do this. One is we host our code running infrastructure in a completely different cloud than the actual where our production database and customer data is present. Early days, we used to conduct hackathons asking people to break our code checkers infrastructure. So people try to do malicious stuff. There was once who even used bug in Linux kernel to access our, get root privileges in that. But even if you because we bring up a server, run your code, and almost kill the server, you get privilege access within that. You don't get any outside access. But even that is not something which we are okay with. So we have found interesting people. And most of the times when people break our system, we just want to see if we can hire them, because they've certainly done something which is, going outside the box and trying to see, they know a lot more of internal systems and how things work. So for sure, that is one way we even try to hire for our core team. And having these regular hackathons, we have a test suite which pretty much tests on, when we even write new deployment code. To make sure it doesn't break the process. So when we run a process, we run the process within a jail, and so that process can't come out. And so you need to, with C++ or C, in fact, it's almost using all the system calls. Like you would do a fork, and within the fork, there is a parent and the child. And in the child process, you will switch the user ID and group ID, set the chroot. So it gets very interesting in understanding of the OS internals. With Golang and containers, very, very simple. Like, you make sure you launch a container and run that underneath that. So that's how we have been doing this. One of my favorite topics to discuss is
That is already a very challenging situation, and I'm pretty sure you might be using Golang to its best, because Golang is one of the language which is modernly designed to handle synchronous and asynchronous tasks and multi-threading and all of that. You control everything in that, how memory should be allocated. You do that in Java as well, but not as, like, there is a mutex in that as well. You manage when to release the things, when not to release the thing. That is like one of my favorite thing to work on the Golang, because in no other language I had so much of control about the threads, even when to execute, when to kill it and all of that. Like, other languages supposedly give you that control, but that's not real control. That's just assuming you that the control is there, but it's not actually there. So I'm pretty sure you must be actually loving the Golang execution there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the right level of the low level and high level. Like, you can use Python and just write everything in 2 lines of code and feel like magic. Or you could go at C and you'd be managing everything bit by bit. Golang came in at the right time, and it gave you the power, but without any of the pain. So that made it very easy for some of these high traffic, things. In fact, I was with this event with Cred, and they moved from Java to Golang. And one of the advice the senior developers gave is, don't write Java and Golang, write Golang and Golang. So become a Golang developer first, understand and appreciate the language, and then you would enjoy the language more. So that
is absolutely 100% true. So what also I see that the similar kind of thing happens in one of our product that we are building up. So we hired a few developers, and we use TypeScript a lot, and they were writing TypeScript as they were writing JavaScript. So this should not be there. You should learn the foundation and why TypeScript actually came into the picture and what advantages you get. So first you become a TypeScript developer, and then you start writing writing TypeScript code. JavaScript certainly helps, but you should not be writing JavaScript in TypeScript. That is one of the bad thing you can do. So coming up on to the testing stuff. So testing is one of the rigorous thing that is required for a platform, something that you have built. So what kind of platforms or frameworks or libraries you're using for testing the front end and the back end itself?
Yeah, testing, it gets complex, and it is one of the things where there is probably a right time at which you have to start, especially if you're starting a 0 to 1 product. There is some early phase where it's probably too early to test, or the product doesn't have the value to test it. And as we start thinking about it, of course, the end-to-end testing, it's Selenium is the golden standard. You need to test everything in the browser. This is mostly for a web application. And on the backend side, we because we are using Ruby on Rails, it's pretty much using RSpec and plugging it in with testing. I think I've seen two major hurdles. It's not about the tool. One is about how do you get started. There is usually one developer within the team where he or she would say, I'm excited in bringing testing culture into the company. I'm going to write the test cases, set up the infrastructure, and how to write test cases and train the entire team. That's one problem solved. The second problem is when you become good at testing, the more test cases you write, the more time it takes to execute those test cases, because
that is the problem.
That's a gradual decay.
Our
right?
source code is smaller, our test case code is like gigantic. Are you facing the same?
Yeah. It takes about, so then it takes few hours to run the entire test suite now. And now we are trying to see, like, how do we parallelize this, and how do we make sure test cases run maybe only the areas where you have modified things and not the entire test suite. And how do we, even before you merge the code, we run the test cases for all the commits so that we have it ready when you're about to merge the code. So you need to do a whole lot of optimization. Two different problems. One problem you'll face when you have no test cases, so where you have to go from 0 to 1. Other problem you'll face when you have a lot of test cases, and you'll face them very, very soon. It's because the team likes to write test cases because it gives them confidence to push new code faster. So that's our journey with the test cases so far.
Yeah, we are facing same kind of problem. We are even evaluating some of the front end side, like we are like very much enthusiastic about Cypress now. We have injected a little bit of Cypress and we are enjoying that on the front end. I would highly recommend you to give it a try. Of course, Selenium is the gold industry standard, but giving a try to Cypress definitely might help you a little bit.
I'll give that a try.
Sure. Okay, one more question. How big is the HackerRank team right now?
So the team we are totally across, we are in 3 different countries, and we are total around 350 folks overall.
Awesome.
We are close to about 100 in India, about 100 in US, and about, I would say, 50 in UK. This is where we had, or rather I would say earlier we had offices in Bangalore, Mountain View, and London. Now we are fully remote. Awesome. So you could be any part of the country and you could still ship code.
So what do you look for when you are hiring and scaling up your team, let's just say engineering team? So what is the first thing that you look? What's that first thing? Obviously the code part and everything that needs to be evaluated. But what's the first thing that you look in the candidate when you are interviewing or somebody is senior in your team interviewing?
I think there is some level of curiosity, especially in tech. There is a lot of new things which is coming up. How well are they are they interested in learning about new things which is coming up? Is there a new React version here? Are they looking into the new React features and talking about that in excitement? Even Apple launching a new phone, do they know the specs of the phone? Is it like there is a new phone versus this is better, this is the processor there, and this is why they should move to a phone rather than just increasing a version? And even same thing we see in our DevOps team. AWS launched this, or Google launched this new feature. I'm waiting for Azure to launch this kind of a thing. They're always up to date because they're curious to learn what is happening around them and see how they can use that for their leverage. I think that's one common thing. We see that in different levels in different roles. So for example, if it's say college fresher, The curiosity comes from, doing probably a bunch of hackathons or contributing to open source projects or contributing in participating in sites like HackerRank. There is something they do outside their college work which showcases their curiosity. And same way for an senior professional, it would be like what are the different things they read about, papers they read about, papers they would want to publish. So this is one thing I think I would say at core.
So one thing I would like to also ask directly from the man himself, who has contributed a lot in open source and have built a great product. I have seen like hundreds of YouTube videos asking people that this is the way how you contribute in the open source. I know this, that there is not a complex procedure to contribute in open source. There are thousands of good projects. Maybe Tailwind is there, Bootstrap is there.
Yeah.
All you got to do is just add a feature into that, what you think is missing, and that is an open source contribution. That's it. You don't need a validation. You don't need a badge. You have added a feature into, let's just say, MariaDB or something. That is an open source contribution to me. So what's your take on this? Like, is it a complex process, or it's just like, go ahead, build something?
It's certainly not complex. It would be easier with some guidance or not even some motivation, as long as we all can do things if we see someone else doing it, like it's doable. And for a lot of folks, open source feels like still it's a little out of reach, and when they see anyone in their circle doing it, I see more people following them and trying their open source stuff. And it doesn't have to be complex, especially if I take front end. I would probably put it in 3 tiers, right? The first tier is you building a front-end application, maybe using a bunch of components out there and using React as an example. You would use React as a framework, and then you would use multiple components from React, let's say one to show a gallery, or other component to show a slideshow or something like that. Now contributing, the second level is you contribute to the components. So you find a feature is missing in the component, open up the source code of the component and add to the component. So, the toggle feature is missing this option, you add it up to that. The third level is you start contributing to React. So it doesn't have to be from 0 to 3. There are enough components out there, enough projects out there which are simple, gives you the right kind of confidence, and you can become even maintainer of those projects at some level, because there are so many projects which needs help there. So it doesn't have to be like, if I am an open source developer, I have to contribute to React. There are thousands and thousands of components where
start
you can
slow.
Start there.
Slow, build small feature. Definitely don't push the request to update README file.
Yeah.
That is the bad thing you ever going to do. Just start, give some meaningful contribution. The whole idea is there is a value proposition. Is there a value that you're adding that is going to be not in the project? If somebody else is going to use that project, is there a value that you're adding? That's the whole idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to onto a question. How good are you at DSA currently?
Right now, I think that there is some muscle memory with the DSA. I've solved enough problems that still I can understand the difference between a BFS and DFS, and I can probably implement them the right way with a queue and stack. But there are understand when I read a problem, this looks like this is dynamic programming, this is greedy and stuff. But it's been a while since I solved. When I say a while, it's years, and even the questions which I ask for interviews in many times is mostly about understanding whether they can code more than whether they can reverse a linked list. So it's identifying whether they can code. It's almost like, the way I say it is, I'm going to give you an English statement, convert that to a C++ statement or a Java statement. So there is no complex things involved in it. I just want to see that you can write easy, readable code, and you're able to debug your own issues. Like when you write code, I do want to make them mistakes, and when they make a mistake, add a right debug statement, or compiler says this line is missing, and reading from the error message and going back to the line and solving this. So I used to solve a lot of complex algorithms during college times. Now I think I'm not that skilled.
More into managerial role.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, that's a phase of life that
Yes.
eventually happens. Okay, so that's quite an interesting conversation we had around that was all revolving around the code. But I want to get a little bit more in depth. So this is all the code part and everything. So I've read like a lot of books, and everybody says always hire people who are smarter than you, who are better coder than you. And a lot of time when startups are building, people don't want to leave code. People don't want to leave what they were doing. So I am also a teacher itself. And in order to scale this up, I need to find teachers who are better than me or who I can train to become a better teacher. So same thing might happen for you as well. You yourself write code, you have built the entire platform. So how hard it was for you to give that responsibility to somebody else, that okay, I'll manage something, I'll look into funding, or I'll look into scaling of the project and team, and now you go ahead and you write the code. How difficult was it?
I think there was a dual syndrome. Like one is the people I was giving this to, they were really smart people. So I was, okay that the things would be built in a better way than I would do it. But certainly not able to write code, and especially coding gives you a way of thinking clearly, like, ability to see the big picture. And I was also worried that would I be, lagging behind in technology? Like, I would not know what is the new cool thing which is coming up in, say, the next version of React. Or even if I know, I would know only from the release notes. I wouldn't know by using it and really understanding the pros and cons of certain new things, right? So certainly that's more of a personal thing, like saying, oh, I'm not going to code enough. I still try to write some code, or at least say review code. Especially there are parts of pieces which I built where people still go ahead and make changes, improve them, and add better structure around that. And there, I'm added as an optional code reviewer, and that gives you a chance to go ahead and read more code. So I've certainly started understanding that you can also learn from reading code, but writing code gives you, maybe if it's 100% reading code, gives you maybe half of it. So I have to read 2x the code. And other structure is, again, reading a lot of open source code. A lot of HackerRank's early day code is influenced by reading code from WordPress, because I used to write plugins for WordPress, and I used to enjoy how their whole architecture is designed for custom plugins, custom themes, and the core of WordPress and so on. So now it's more into trying to understand how Nginx code works, or trying to understand the internals of MySQL. So some of the bigger projects which I've always used, but never even assumed that, even they are built of software only, and I can go ahead and read their code as well. So that's how I think I made peace with myself, saying I'm not gonna lag behind in technology. But it happened in phases that I didn't really know. It was not like one day I realized I'm not gonna write code. It happened over a period of time.
It was a gradual shift.
Yeah, and then I realized that, okay, I'm not leading in the GitHub's insights anymore. Like, there are many people who are way above me. That's when I realized, it looks like I've stopped writing code. That's the way it went through.
So where HackerRank is going now, like where you are taking this company forward now?
So now there are two paths there. One is as a core HackerRank, we are trying to build assess more and more skills. And there is always a set of new skills which is coming up now. So for example, a ton of things in Web3, you think of Android developer, security, and there is also skills assessment needed for some of the older technologies. Like, we still have people reaching out to us to see if we can build this for DB2 and COBOL and JCL and so on. So we are at a spectrum where, this is something which just launched last quarter, and how do we assess and hire developers for this, versus this is something which is super old, and how do we do that? So on the HackerRank side, it is how do we expand this for all possible skills within the developer profile. I'm also, I have personally started picking up a team called Labs within HackerRank, where we can come up with new initiatives and new developer products. So the 2-3 products we built there. One is called a Hacker Resume. where how do we build really good, clean resume which is focused on skills for developers. It's not like I somehow have this thing against, like, whenever I see a resume in not a great format in a Word doc, I have a bias saying maybe this is not so great. And when it's LaTeX and very, very well typesetted and has one of those good templates, I give it a few more seconds. And this is my own bias. So I wanted to reduce the bias. So built a platform where every single resume is developer friendly and of high quality. Then we also built another product called HackerDraw, where we can draw diagrams for system diagrams and so on. Yeah, so that's a tool where, again, solving our own problems, where our architects used to draw diagrams and they used to download it as a PNG and add it to our documentation. And as systems evolve, I'm now editing it in Paint to modify that to the latest version, because I can't ask my architect to rebuild it from scratch. They don't know where they created it. They just went to a site and just created it and download a PNG. So I can't be doing this as my day job, but I want to maintain good documentation. So
I used exactly for same purpose, the HackerDraw, that the moment it came in, the very next day we were having a meeting with the software architect that we have, and we wanted to discuss some things that entirely happened on HackerDraw. We drew it, take the diagram out, re-uploaded that, and had a little bit tweaks around that. So we still are using it.
I'm so glad that that's helping. And the third one, again, I'm helping trying to build as a team, is, again, how do we help companies manage after you give an offer to a developer, how do we manage the post-offer follow-up? Because there is even, especially here in India, there is a dropout after people sign the offer letter. And they
never show up.
Yeah, and companies want to do their best and keep them engaged so that they can show up. So these are a few products I'm working as a part of, we call HackerRank Labs team, where each one of them is in a different domain. Like I'm the only one who can say buy a domain and build a product there. The rest of the skills and everything is within the HackerRank.com. So that's what we are working these days.
So apart from this, we also discussed briefly on the call itself when we were having initial interaction that we also want to have a tie-up, because we teach the state-of-the-art technology. We are now teaching Web3 in our company. We are teaching all these Solidity, where I'm also teaching Flutter, iOS, React Native, so you name it, we all teach up here, Python, data science and engineering. So we would love to collaborate and be a part that how we can use HackerRank platform, that we are teaching a subject here and we would like to evaluate the user on the HackerRank, give it our own test cases, give it our own challenges there so that people can build maybe a React app, maybe an Angular app, so all of this. So I would love to collaborate. So is there a possibility that we can collaborate on the same and can explore both of the products? How does that sound
Absolutely.
to you?
I mean, one of the reasons why we built this HackerRank product is so that people can learn, and what we thought of learn is learning by solving, and that while that works at some part, it is not the only way. In fact, people need some guidance before they can get to a solving stage, which is watching a video and understanding the basic steps, or learning a programming language first, even before we ask them to solve them an array problem and so on. So there is certainly a meaningful, here is phase one, and then I've learned this, now I want to show to the world that I've learned this, so let me solve something kind of a thing. And then once they solve this, I want to learn more, so they go back to the first page again. So
the same concepts you are following. Learn by doing, learn by solving something, not just by taking example, or what I'm teaching on the YouTube video, you write the exact same code. That shouldn't be the way. That should be one way of getting started. But in order to get ahead of me, you need to solve this on your own. And I think what the product you are building on the HackerRank, the vision forward, aligns exactly with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We should try to see how we can collaborate on this and give a seamless experience for the developers who want to learn.
Sure. So I would definitely get a tie-up with the team and stuff, so that in the very next bootcamp that I'm taking up here, I can evaluate these students and provide them enough of the challenges on the HackerRank platform itself, so that they can evaluate and then come back that I was not able to solve this, help them to solve that again, and then come back, teach a new topic, and then go back, solve it again.
That looks fantastic.
Sure. So I would really be happy to collaborate officially with HackerRank for this entirety of the training that we are providing, and have HackerRank as an official collaborator for that.
Super excited to be partner for this.
Sure. So that's all, and thank you so much for giving so much of your valuable time. I know there were a lot of interesting conversation, and we can go whole day for that, but maybe we'll do a podcast part 2, maybe after some time, and have a detailed discussion about some of the individual products that we are building, and what are the challenges you are solving, and how the tech stack goes on behind, let's just say, the drawing product, a resume product, and how well the crowd is behaving on that and reacting to that. So definitely we'll call you again on the podcast. That was such an interesting conversation with you. Thank you so much. And again, one more time, from the entire engineering community, thank you so much for building HackerRank.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
So this was all about it. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Even if you are listening it on the Spotify podcast anywhere, or you're watching it on YouTube, go ahead, hit that subscribe as well, and follow us more. We will be bringing up more such guests. Awesome knowledge is going to flow up here, and I'll surely catch you up in the next video.